Hi, Rachel Mead here. I'm the founder of Enhanced Prep, and I've been working with the SAT and the ACT for over 25 years. I'm so excited to spend some time with you today to share with you some of my expertise and best tips. Today, we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about what you need to do in order to kill it when it comes to the SAT reading section. Now, keep in mind, most of us know how to read. It's something that our brain does automatically. We tend to not think about the steps along the way. It is just a natural process to us by the time we take that SAT and the ACT. We don't have to think about the words in front of us. We know what they're saying. So why is the reading on the SAT and the ACT then? Well, it really takes a look at a different type of reading than what we're used to doing in school. The SAT speaks its own language and has its own goals and things that it's looking for the student to demonstrate. So the approach that I'm going to recommend to the SAT is going to be entirely different than the approach that students take when they're working on an ELA or standard reading assignment that may come up within the school or the academic setting. There's 6 steps that you want to follow here. So grab a sheet of paper, grab your pencil. Let's take some notes as you're following along with me. Number 1 is what we call preview. What does that mean? It means that your job is to read the little introduction that comes at the front of all 5 of those passages that comes into play. And it also means that your job is to reorder the passages. What does that mean? Well, we know most students, when they're starting a standardized test like the SAT, start with the very first passage and the very first question and just work the test booklet to the end. However, the test writers know that. So what do? They put that lit passage up front, which tends to look like pretty easy reading because it's fiction-based. It might even have some conversation going on in it. However, the questions that come into play with that lit passage tend to be a little bit more dense, a little bit more time consuming, require a little bit more inference than some of the other passages that come later on. So the test writers are actually looking to waste a student's time and energy and decrease the number of questions they're getting right in that first passage compared to some others. Now, is this true for all students? No, it's not. So it's really important to practice the different types of passages in the reading. But for the vast majority of students, the first passage presented is not the first passage that a student should be working on. So we're going to read that blurb, we're going to preview the passages, and we're going to determine, hey, based upon me as the test taker, my own unique strengths, or you as the test taker, what order should you be doing these passages in based upon what you know about yourself? Should history passages come before science passages? Where's your social science passage coming into play? What are you going to do with your dual? All of these things are vital to helping you be successful when it comes to that SAT reading section. Step number 2 is what we call target the questions. Now, notice I didn't say step number 2 is to read the passage. If you're given an assignment in school that says, read chapter 3 in your US history book and turn in the answers to the questions at the end, what do most students do? They go to the end of the chapter, they read the questions, and then they go and preview or skim and scan the passage in order to find the answers. Why do we do this? So that we can target with our brain what it should be paying attention to within the reading, because believe me, the test writers do everything they can to make these passages dry and boring so that when you get down to the bottom of the column, you're like, I know I just read something, but I couldn't tell you what I actually read. So by taking that minute to target or read the questions before you tackle the passage, your brain knows what to be on the lookout for, and it helps you stay dialed in and focused on what's going on within that passage so that you can get through those questions faster when you get to them. Step number 3, work the passage. Now, wait a minute, Rachel, you said this was a reading section. What's going on? When am I reading? Technically you are, but you're kind of not. Work the passage means that you need to have an active pencil. You're paying attention to proper nouns and dates. You're paying attention to anything that the author is doing to draw your attention or emphasize something, such as italics, quotations, parentheses, dashes. These are all things that the author does to say, hey, pay attention to an explanation that I'm giving you. By keeping your pencil active, you are forcing your brain to stay dialed in to the text that's in front of you, rather than just routinely reading something without actually allowing the words to process. So again, step number 3, work that passage, and you do that by having an active pencil. Step number 4 is you find your window. Now remember, all questions have the same point value when it comes to the impact on your reading score within your SAT, but not all questions are created equally. What do I mean by that? Well, some questions are a lot faster and easier to get through, where some questions take a little bit more time, a little bit more analysis, a little bit more processing, a little bit more process of elimination. So your job is to say, how can I start gathering understanding of this passage in the fastest, most effective way for me? And that means you take the questions out of order by finding your window for questions individually as you're working through that. So you want to start with shorter questions that talk about vocabulary. You want to move on to questions that have a line reference that comes into play. Your main idea question, which is almost always the first question they give you, needs to be the very last one that you do, because you're going to have a more solid understanding of the main idea of the passage after you have worked through a whole bunch of detailed questions that relate to that passage. So you find your window, put your question number in the margin next to the text where you're finding it, and use that as placeholders to anchor in the other questions that you're working around them. You're going to find that there's a lot of consistencies or themes between the questions. And if you know where you answered one, that's going to help you pinpoint where to answer others. Step number 5 is speak for yourself. And this means that the SAT test writers can put some language into the question or into the answers that's designed to distract you. It's designed to lead you in the wrong direction. It's designed to get in the way of helping you answer a question correctly. Because the SAT isn't just about demonstrating your mastery. The SAT is all about putting you in that bell curve of how you're comparing to the other students that are taking the same exam. So by stepping back for a minute and saying, okay, here's what the passage is telling me about this. How would I paraphrase that? If this was a free-form response question on a test that I was taking other than the SAT, what words or phrases, what's the subject, what's the verb that I would expect to see in those answer choices? That's going to help you eliminate the wrong answers and pinpoint the correct answer faster. SAT reading is about getting the wrong answer choices out of the way to help you pinpoint where the best answer is going to be. And that brings us to that step number 6 of that process of elimination. A couple big takeaways in terms of what's going to help you find the best answer. The writing in that answer choice is going to be concise. It's also going to be an active voice. You want to make sure that you're ignoring or eliminating with your process of elimination any answer choices that have a negative connotation about the subject or the author, any answer choices that have extreme language, such as always, never, must, words of that nature. Also, the answer choices cannot offend anyone. So make sure that they have a neutral approach to them, and make sure that there's no opinion-based words in them, because this has to be factually represented in the passage as it's presented. So again, reminder of our 6-step approach to help you maximize your reading score. Preview your passages, take them out of order, target your questions, read your questions first before the passage, and take the questions out of order. Work your passage having an active pencil, paying attention to proper nouns, dates, and things the author is doing. Find your window. Where's the support to help you choose the answer to this question? Get it marked and anchored on the paper so you know where to find other answer choices. Paraphrase, step number 5, speak for yourself. What words or phrases would you use to summarize this? And make sure that you are heavily working your process of elimination. Good luck to you as you go out there and conquer your SAT reading.